So what are some signs that maybe a woman is dysregulated or potentially needs a lot more of this work?
Breath work allows for is to quiet that part of the brain so that you can access stillness and peace.
You were doing this earlier, tapping. So tell us what you were doing, what it is, and how people can potentially use that as a tool. Claire, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
I'm stoked to be here.
Let's chat about all things wellness, mental wellness, stress relief, all the things. What really lights you up when it comes to the work that you do?
What lights me up is going beyond just stress relief
Yeah.
and using these tools as practice grounds to literally take up space in the world, take up space in your body, own who you are and step into that next level of who you're here to become.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many women that feel like they're doing everything right. They're like, I'm working out, I'm doing my nutrition, I'm getting in my sleep, my step count's up. Where does stress play a role in that?
Stress is the literal block to everything that you're wanting in life. I mean, think about the word regulation, right? Like when we think about stress, most people go right to regulation and wanting to calm down. But I always tell my clients regulation isn't just about being calm all the time. Regulation is feeling really safe and secure within your nervous system within a wide range of feeling. So it's safe to be in stress, and it's safe to be calm, and it's safe to be in your joy. And so if your nervous system feels really comfortable in stress all the time, and that's your default state that you're functioning on, then your body probably isn't going to respond very well to introducing more stress into your life through really high intensity workouts or working out 7 days a week really hard,
Yeah.
So your body, it needs to have the space to upregulate, downregulate, and everything in between.
So do you feel like that's almost sabotaging their results?
Yeah.
And then how do you get people to actually sit in their stress? Because sometimes even I say so myself, I'm like, I don't want to sit in that feeling. I just want it to go away. So a distraction might be something that I would go to. And then but the stress is still there.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to sit in those feelings and emotions?
Yeah, this is where a lot of people have trouble meditating. Do you meditate?
I do, 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
But not super consistently. But yes, it's hard to though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what a lot of people are missing when it comes to meditation or tools like breath work is it's not about just sitting in the stillness, although that is productive and helpful.
Yeah.
But there's an actual skill that you get to build through that practice, the skill of interoception. It's the opposite of perceiving reality around you. It's the skill of perceiving what's happening inside you. So what that gets to feel like and be like in practice is noticing your heartbeat, noticing your breath as it's moving in and out of your nose, noticing your body's temperature. Is it hot? Is it cold? Noticing if there's any tension being held anywhere in your body. And what this allows for is to essentially graduate beyond just meditating for 10 minutes a day because we know it's good for us and it's something to check off the list, but actually moving energy through our body. And there's other tools we can get into later.
Yeah.
But that's really the place that I encourage people to shift gears into when it comes to these practices.
It's interesting you say that. And as you were talking, I was like, yeah, sometimes I notice when my breath is super fast or my heart rate is too high. And then I put so much focus on that I don't actually get into that mindset of what is calming meditation. So I almost kind of hyper focus on one of those things.
Yeah.
Is that normal or what would you tell people that do that?
It can be normal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even somebody like me who's been meditating every day for almost 10 years, I still have meditations where that happens, where I don't fully drop in. But it's less so because I've balanced that daily practice with deeper practices like breath work. And I'd love to just ask, just kind of check in.
Yeah.
What do you know about breath work? Have you ever tried breath work before? Just so I have a place to kind of start here.
A little bit, but let's pretend like our
Yeah.
audience doesn't know what
Okay.
breath work is. Let's tell them about what it is.
Perfect. So a lot of people who find that anxiety or anxious thoughts or just kind of like scattered energy is like their default state. Like maybe it can be hard to really break through in a normal grounding meditation practice. A lot of those kinds of people find it really helpful to introduce breath work on a regular basis. And the reason for that is because when you're in these sort of looping thoughts around like maybe hyper prioritizing or hyper focusing on a sensation or something going on in your body, your default mode network is lit up. So your default mode network is it's not one part of the brain, but it's kind of the collective part of the brain that's lit up when we're in self-referential thought or planning the day or just like kind of that general state. And what breath work allows for is to quiet that part of the brain so that you can access stillness and peace and kind of expand your perception wider rather than being in that really narrow, kind of stress oriented, hyper focused state, if that makes sense.
So, what is the difference between that and meditation then?
Well, there's different kinds of breath work.
Yeah.
So, the kind of breath work that I work with most, there's two kinds. There's activating breath work and restorative breath work. Restorative breath work, you can just think of like a meditation practice, really restorative, calm, in and out through your nose. Activation breath work, you can think of kind of like a workout or a sauna session or a cold plunge, but for your brain and your emotional body. So, what we're doing is we're introducing a very intentional, brief window of time, sympathetic state into the body. So, it's like a healthy stress state where you breathe a bit quicker, a bit deeper for even just a short window of time, even just 5 minutes can be really valuable. Even just 10 of these breaths can be really valuable. But what that allows for is energy and emotions to come up to the surface if there's anything that wants to be processed. Because sometimes when we feel stuck in meditation, what's actually happening is there's stress or tension or emotion beneath the surface that's like wanting to be processed, but our own thoughts are getting in the way of that natural process that's like wanting to happen.
You know, it's funny because when I think of breath work and when I first heard about it years ago at this point, I was like, what are you talking about? We're just breathing. So, like, can anyone do this? Is this for everyone? Like, who do you think it's most valuable to?
Yeah, really good questions. So, restorative breath work is for everybody.
Yeah.
Activation breath work, it's really up to the individual, but most people say pregnant women probably no go.
Yeah.
There are certain heart conditions, health conditions that you just want to be more mindful working with it because you are introducing technically a healthy stress state, similar with exercise or sauna or cold plunge, right? So most people, this is totally healthy and all good for, but it's the quickest tool that you can have at your disposal to just like once you really know what that feels like to use your breath to move energy, which can be like kind of this that's even that in itself is kind of more of a fluffy term than I like to use, like move energy, because what does that really mean? But the body is literally an electrical thing, right? And when we carry stress, when we carry tension, when we carry emotions, what's happening is there's like blockages in our fascia. There's certain postures that we hold, and all of that tightness literally is restricting like the free flow of electricity and energy and nutrients and hormones and like neurons firing. Like all of that stuff can't operate at its best and at its peak when we're holding on to that tension.
So you go through this active breath work. And can you give me just like a quick like what does that sound like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I demonstrate?
Yeah, I would love
Is
that.
that going to be weird in the mic?
No, well, we're
Okay.
about to find out.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's do it for like a couple minutes. I'll actually just like listen and watch.
Yeah.
And this is on YouTube, so people can actually watch it.
Oh,
but
great.
also if you're just hearing it in your ears,
Yeah.
you can listen to it.
So the basically 60-second demo would be, there's two options. You can either breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, or you can breathe in and out through your mouth. I call this like level 1 and level 2.
Okay.
So sort of mid-tier activation breath would be something like this. Focusing on bringing the breath down and kind of expanding your chest, your diaphragm, your belly as you're breathing.
Okay.
And then in and out through your mouth, you could just think of it as like giving it a little more gas, but sometimes this can feel uncomfortable for some people's bodies, but it would look like this. And again, like drawing that breath down. A lot of people feel really restricted here. So that can oftentimes be the practice, is just like relearning how to breathe correctly, where you're expanding on every inhale and, compressing on each exhale. A lot of people actually will breathe the reverse, and it like confuses the body.
How do you think we got to a place where we're breathing incorrectly?
A lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, in our normal day-to-day life, we're meant to be breathing in and out through our nose. I mean, you probably know that.
For sure.
Are you a big mouth taper?
You know what? I haven't used it yet, but I would try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's honestly game-changing.
Do you use it?
I
night?
use it. Emily uses it every
Yeah.
night. Sometimes she sends me texts like in bed. She's got her mouth tape on.
Nice. So you
very
recommend
cute.
it?
Highly recommend it.
Let's do a quick tangent on mouth tape.
Yeah. So I will share, functional breathing isn't like my expertise area,
Okay.
but I know enough to just speak to it. But when we breathe in through our nose, it basically produces like a whole host of effects, even from like the physiology of our facial structure. When we breathe through our mouth, there's less filtration of the air that you're actually breathing in. So the quality of that air is more poor. And even chewing is another thing, like from a really young age, especially, I mean, I grew up in the 90s. So a lot of juice boxes and apple sauces and like soft, mushy things. We're meant to chew our food. And so that mastication, chewing process will change the shape of your mouth. But if there's not enough space, like I'd have an expander for 3 years or something when I was young, then we can't breathe properly. So there's that. There's also just not learning how to work with our physical body to release that stress and release tension on a day-to-day basis. So it builds up, and then we end up with anxiety. We end up with avoidant patterns. We end up with all sorts of stuff, and our bodies match our mental state.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I feel like every time I go to some sort of doctor, I went to the pelvic floor therapist a couple of years ago, and she was like, okay, breathe. And I was like, immediately felt my chest. And I was like, wait, I know that's not right, but that's like the first place I go. And so even just like reminders like this is really helpful for people. So then tell me why mouth tape, and why at night, and why you should be using it.
Well, so many people breathe through their mouths at night.
At
like
night.
we can't help it, right? We're unconscious. And I don't know this for sure, but I like to think back to, if we were living in nature, how would we be living? And we probably wouldn't be using a pillow. So there's that automatic restriction of airflow, right? When we have a pillow. Not that I'm like going to stop using a pillow. Like I love a pillow. But we do live in a way that counteracts like what nature really intended for us. So I know that most of my life I would wake up, my mouth would be hella dry, what other indication is there that I'm sleeping with my mouth open? So that was, I don't know, probably, I was still in Toronto. So probably 5 years ago, I started using mouth tape every single night.
Yeah.
And I sleep so well with it.
Is there anyone that shouldn't be doing it?
That's a good question. Ask your doctor
Don't know
if
the
you
answer.
think.
Yeah.
But Emily, and for anyone who doesn't know, Tara's virtual assistant, is my best friend. But she like had so much chronic congestion and sinus issues, and she mouth tapes every night and finds it really helpful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I feel like we were going back to the breathing. Why people are dysregulated in their breath and they can't find their breath. And it's because a lot of things you mentioned. So now let's go back into those activation techniques that you just taught us. So how long could you be doing that for? What would happen after you go through that activation for 60 seconds? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, what you're doing with that practice is, like I said, regulation is feeling safe within a wider range of feeling. So, what we're doing is we want to expand our what's called window of tolerance for both stress or even removing the word stress from it, because that automatically has a connotation to it. But we want to increase our capacity to be with healthy charge in our system, right? Like, how many of your clients do you have to teach what RPE 10 actually feels like? Do you work
Yes.
with RPE?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it probably takes a while for
Long
them
time. Yeah.
to realize like what that feels like in their body and
Right.
know that they're safe to really go there.
Yeah, I love that.
Because we're all capable of so much more than we think. But we will often kind of reach that point where it's like, oh, this feels hard, and then stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way that you would progressive overload in the gym, like my husband's a fitness coach. So I'm like, I wasn't a weightlifter and I became one very quickly when we started dating.
Yeah.
But in the same way that you progressive overload in the gym, you can apply this to breath work as well to get more comfortable with what it feels like to be with a healthy amount of charge in your body, to maybe feel like your hands buzzing or to feel your breath deeper, to expand your rib cage just a bit, like these tiny micro movements to get more attuned to what it feels like to be in your body, like anchored and rooted and secure in your body rather than like a floating head and all these thoughts and all these things. So we can typically on a daily basis, I recommend people work with activating breathing. On the lower end, even just 10 breaths is amazing. Like 10 of those deep, full breaths, followed by your standard 10-minute meditation. I'd be really curious for you to try that even tomorrow and just like see how, if it feels different, how it feels different, because it can kind of act like this bit of rocket fuel. In a really gentle way to just help you drop deeper into it. So every time you work with activation breath, you want to close it out with that restorative breath. And that's how you can use this as like practice grounds to upregulate, downregulate, and feel safe within that full spectrum.
You know, Claire, we talked about not breathing through our mouth, but you told me an activation technique with just mouth breathing.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it's for a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
So, at most, in a deeper quote unquote breathwork journey, we would be breathing maybe for 40 minutes in and out through our mouth. And like I said, it's the same thing as like you wouldn't want to be in a sauna all day, but doing a couple rounds of sauna for an hour is great. Or you wouldn't want to be in a cold plunge all day, but being in the plunge for 2 minutes, is great.
Yeah.
You don't want to be sprinting all day, but for that short period of time, it's really good. It has that hormetic effect in the body, and breath work is the same.
It's funny because I'm, fitness professional through and through. I used to be a sprinter. Like I can go hard. You said 40 minutes on breath work, and I was like, what? No way.
Yeah.
Like, and I've done some breath work and meditation a little bit before, but like there's always a point in the breath work classes that I've taken where I do get scared, nervous. Like my body's just like, what are you doing? And I just immediately kind of shut down before I get there. And so you say 40 minutes and I'm like, oh my God. But as we both know, you can start with 5 or 10 and then kind of build on that. So how do you feel like, where do you feel like this would be beneficial for women who may not even know? They know that like something's up with their body. They want to be more in tune, but they're just like, where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah. I would start with a daily practice. Even starting with meditation is great.
Yeah.
But like we talked about earlier, sometimes that in itself can be the barrier
Of course. Yeah.
because a lot of women have tried meditation and felt blocked or stuck. So taking 10 of those deeper breaths, just like I demonstrated, is a phenomenal place to start to quiet that default mode network, um, to increase healthy charge in the body. And even if, let's say, breathwork's not your jam, maybe someone's listening and they're like, I've tried breathwork, I don't want to. Like, whatever, I get that. It wasn't mine either. When I first got into breathwork, just so everybody knows, I was not into it. The facilitator, the vibe, the technique, it just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And it took a couple tries to kind of find the style and the facilitators that I really resonated with. And then I went through my training and all of that. But if breathwork is not somebody's thing, then there's other ways to introduce healthy charge in the body and move energy and release stress and tension. And sometimes all that looks like is just shaking your body out. Like there's a couple times throughout every single day where I'll just stand up from my desk and I'll just stand up and I'll shake for 30 seconds, a minute. And you'd be surprised by like how different you feel. Maybe not you, but because you know how important movement is.
Yeah,
but
yeah, no, but sometimes you forget how easy it is to
Yeah.
change your thought process or change how you're feeling. Some deep breaths, one song, if it comes on, you close your eyes and you think about a moment or a memory, like it really is. But I think that there's still some disconnect for women to even feel or to even understand those subtle signs. So what are some, signs that maybe a woman is dysregulated or potentially needs a lot more of this work?
Yeah, I find it really helpful to think about the 4 stress responses.
Okay.
So I'll just really high level cover those. And
Yeah.
then as the listeners are tuning in, they can figure out which one they kind of fall into most.
Yeah.
So we all oscillate through all of these, but we usually have a dominant stress response. And we've all heard of fight or flight. So fight being if your natural response when there's conflict is to actually move towards the conflict and get big or get loud or maybe defensive or blame, even if it's not in like the classical way, but if that is your default response, then it's likely the fight response. The flight response is the opposite. It's like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
It's moving away from conflict. So if you and your partner get into an argument and your first instinct is, I need to go away or I need to go for a walk or something like that, or if anxiety is generally really prevalent for you, then the flight response is probably your default. Lesser known too are freeze and fawn. So these are my dominant two and have taken a lot of work to unravel myself from. But the freeze response is most often characterized by holding a lot of tension, like literally freezing, like you're frozen, disassociating, feeling like you just don't have the capacity or the energy to resolve conflict or move towards like the thing on your list that's the really high priority. And the fawn response is the sneakiest one of all 4.
I haven't heard of this.
You haven't heard this
I
one?
don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fawn response is people pleasing.
Okay.
Which that's the classical definition of it. And when I first learned about the fawn response, I was like, oh, that's not really me. I think I'm like a freeze response girl, which was a dominant stress response. But I will never forget, it was early last year, so like 18 months ago. I had just this full on epiphany that the fawn response had been my dominant stress response, just like running my entire life for the past 30 years. And had a really fun year using all my practices and putting the work to unravel myself from that stress response, dictating my decisions, my actions, and how I show up or don't show up. So you talk a lot about taking up space. And the fawn response is the opposite of that. It's getting small or chameleoning yourself to the energy in a room or putting on a smile for somebody else. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
You know, and that's like really not authentically how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And the fawn response is also shrinking in the bigness of your dreams or like your visions. Like, it's just too much. I can't do it. So, those are the 4 stress responses. And based off of which of those you feel like you might resonate most with, then those would really be the signs or the symptoms to look out for. Because whether you get defensive or blaming or um, like literally running from your problems, anxious, holding tension, disassociating, kind of going off into la la land, dreamland, or knowing that you really want something, but you're letting other people kind of just make decisions in your life for you, or maybe you don't even know what you want. That's another symptom of the fawn response is being really indecisive.
Mm.
And it can come across as like, "Oh, I'm just a chill girl. Like
Yeah.
I'm just low maintenance. I don't really need much." But if you don't actually know what you want and stand and take up space in that desire, then you're people pleasing, girl.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's funny is as you were going through those, I kind of could relate with stories, and I'm sure the listeners can. Maybe some people put me in each of those categories.
Mm.
I don't know if it's probably a normal thing too. But I would say in general, I'm a lot more of a fighter just because I'm Italian. That's
Yeah.
my background. I'm like, I will win. But like I could feel some people take me in different places. But I think that I know my body well enough to know how to regulate that. So if women are listening and they're like, oh my God, that's me, or I do that, that is this where they can, bring in some of these breathwork practices and like kind of down regulate that?
Yeah, for sure. And this is the most interesting part about it all for me personally is I love to support people in bringing more precision with this work because a lot of people will try to just they'll know they're feeling off or maybe anxious or this or that, but they'll try to slap a meditation on it and then be like, it's kind of working, but maybe not to the level that I think it should or other
Yeah.
people. Like it works for them. Am I doing something wrong? Do I just need to do it longer? So I really love to support people in bringing more precision into basically, if you're feeling this, do this.
Mm.
If you're feeling that,
Yeah.
do that. Because if you're in a fight response, my recommendation for you is going to look a lot different than if you're in a freeze response on how to work with your nervous system. So,
And is that when it comes up or it kind of like research, like to do before?
yeah,
Yeah.
you can work with your body in the moment.
Yeah.
But what's even better is to have a daily practice where you're discharging energy, moving emotions, like feeling emotions in the
Yeah.
first place, so that there's this contextually appropriate outlet for this energy
Yeah.
rather than having to, quick, like fix it when it's coming up in the moment, or it genuinely might not be an appropriate scenario to be like, quick, let me just like tap my heart or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to get into that next, but
Mhm.
it's interesting that you say like it might not be an appropriate moment because obviously stressors can come up in any parts of your life.
Yeah.
You might need to really cry or something big might happen. And you're in a situation where you can't feel those emotions. Are you someone that's like, let it out, cry, do it? Like it should be more societally okay to like feel those emotions? Or are you someone that's like, let's get to a place where you feel good and safe to go through that?
Yeah. I think it's yes, and I think it's both. Like, ideally, we would live in a society
Yeah.
where emotions are embraced and everyone knows how to work with their body mind system. And when people have children, they feel regulated themselves and know how to work with their own body, but
Mhm.
also know how to teach their children
Yeah.
these tools. That's a whole other can of worms. But I also recognize that that's just not the world we live in.
Yeah.
So it is kind of up to us to give ourselves the gift of releasing that built up energy in the first place in our own daily practices, clear mental clutter. Um, yeah, just like relax, Just relax,
Yeah.
you know?
You guys need to fucking relax. Me to me. How does stress play a role in health and fitness? Like, how does it play a role in your nutrition and your workouts and all that?
Yeah. The thing with stress is that your body, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this
Oh,
podcast, but
please. Yeah.
it doesn't give a fuck like what you want if you're stressed. Like your body doesn't know that you're safe if you're stressed. So it's going to divert all of its attention and resources and energy to your most vital functions. And it's not really going to care as much about, let's say, like repairing your muscle tissue or, um, repairing your gut lining, like these things that most of us probably actually do need to focus on. Like right now, I'm working with somebody on a really specific protocol to heal some allergies, and there's like some gut stuff that we're working on. So a big part of that is not carrying stress because stress is not good for your gut. Um, so I think it's really about just remembering that you might know what you need and you might think that you can hold it all and that you're good, but your body is a really primal thing and your body's going to do what it needs to do in order to like keep you as balanced as possible.
Now, we've talked a lot about stress, it being a bad thing, but as we
Mhm.
know, movement and breath work can be a good stress. Is there a good and bad stress?
It's hard to like put it into a one word sentence definition of good and bad stress, but yes, there is. There's stress in a short window of time that's intentional and it's for a purpose and it builds resilience in your body and makes you stronger, right? So breath work, cold plunge, sauna, workouts, all of that.
Yeah.
Even challenging yourself to focus on a task for a longer period of time, that's a healthy form of stress versus letting stress linger
Yeah.
and not giving yourself the space that you need to step away, to like be in nature, to allow your thoughts to kind of wander in more of a creative, broader lens way. Um, that's really the only time stress becomes a problem is when you don't know what it feels like or maybe how to transition out of that stress state properly.
Is there a time where someone can feel so much stress that they don't know what it's like to not feel stress?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say a lot of people are
Yeah.
probably in that box.
And I think a lot of those people, unfortunately, they're so high on that they don't feel like anything can actually make them feel better.
Mhm.
And as we both know, we can't change people,
Yeah.
but we could potentially be a role model for how it can be a part of their life. Is there anything that we can give the audience of like maybe they have someone in their life or someone that they know that just lives in high stress? Some like tools or resources for
Yeah.
that.
So, my first thought on that is you said you can't change people. People don't want to be changed too. Like the
There,
second
facts. Yeah.
you go in there with you should do this,
Yeah.
game over.
Right.
Um, so for me personally, I have found so much value in these tools and my general journey with health and wellness and really wanted my family to
Yeah.
try and like make some shifts and changes. And they have, which is great, but it's taken like 8 years for that to happen.
Right.
Um, so there's absolutely an element of surrender. And my biggest lesson through this has been that people really are watching
Mm.
and they're taking notes and they're noticing, even if it's from afar, because my family lives in Michigan and I'm in Austin, and I only see them twice a year or so. And um, every time I go home, it's like, wow, you're really happy and healthy all the time, like comments like that. And it's like, yeah, yeah, really happy and really healthy.
That's how you
And
can live.
then
Yeah.
eventually it turns into questions, right? Like, well, what are you doing for this? Oh, interesting. What are you doing for that? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's more so just about about really prioritizing you, putting you first, and knowing that other people will take note, they'll ask questions, and then that doorway opens and you can support them.
I love that. My brothers still haven't changed though. I've been doing this for
Yeah.
15 years or so. I'm like,
Sometimes they
come
never
on.
will.
Yeah, but you're right. Like they also don't want to be changed, and you can't shit all over people because they're not going to want to do it even more.
Yeah. It
You
can
know,
be really triggering for people too,
for sure.
to know that someone close to them is making really big progress in
Yeah,
their life, and that there's a way and a path for them to make progress too, but to day after day after day not make that change, it can actually get harder and harder and harder. Um, because it's like, well, I haven't been able to do it yet, so why try? And that's where the deeper emotional work is, in my opinion, sometimes even more important than the physical work,
for
because
yourself or for them. Well, for
for
your,
people in general,
yeah, yeah,
because, there's so many people who make physical changes, get a lot of value from it, and then that in itself inspires them to go deeper with mental and emotional work. But there's also a lot of people who put in the work physically, and maybe they're still holding on to weight, or still holding on to just heaviness in general. And that's where the emotional work can sometimes be even more important
Mm.
to help people let go of that finally.
You were doing this earlier,
Yeah.
tapping. I want to talk about that because I personally don't know too much about it. So tell us what you were doing, what it is, and how people can potentially use that as a tool.
Yes. So I do want to differentiate the tool that I work with most and with my clients is more of an intuitive tapping approach.
Okay.
There's something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, that follows really specific order of operations, phrases that you use. Sometimes I work with that, but I personally find it boxes me in too much,
Okay.
and ends up being this thing that I have to like think really hard about versus intuitive tapping. I just feel like my body can flow more easily and like get what it's actually wanting from it. So, intuitive tapping is acupressure. A lot of people know what acupuncture is, needles working with meridian lines in your body to quote unquote free up energy through your system and move chi, basically. Acupressure is similar to that, but you work with pressure rather than puncturing.
Mm.
So you can tap anywhere on your body. This doesn't have to be
Anywhere.
any specific point. Yep. Anywhere you can tap your arms, you can
Okay.
tap your legs, you can tap your face. And if anyone listening is familiar with the chakra system, the general, crown, third eye, what's next? Throat, heart, sacral, or solar plexus, sacral root. I generally like to use that as a starting point, just kind of knowing the themes of those chakra points, and um, use those as a guiding force, like for where to start with tapping. And then as I get into a flow state with that, the body can just kind of explore, like, what does this feel like? What does that feel like? But it can be another way to help you drop out of your mind and be with your body and feel like, what does that feel like? What does this feel like? And just approach everything with curiosity and openness.
Would you consider this similar to breath work?
It's definitely supportive
Yeah.
with breath work and alongside breath work, but they don't have to be paired together.
Okay.
Sometimes I actually prefer, in when I'm weaving nervous system regulation into my day to day, like if I'm between meetings or even if I'm like on a client call, I might just kind of tap my thighs where they can't even see I'm doing it. It's just kind of this thing that helps me stay grounded and anchored and present.
Okay.
But it can be just more of like an accessible way to come back to your body. Like, okay, there I am.
Mm.
Even if you pull up to the grocery store, you sit in your car, just kind of tap your heart for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's such a game changer.
So interesting because I've seen it around, but I didn't really know what it was for. And so it just seems like you you get out of your head, out of your mind, out of potential spirals or whatever is going on up here, and just like get back into your own body.
Mhm.
And I think it feels actually even more accessible for me personally, and potentially even any clients listening, than breath work
Yeah.
at this point. Because I mean, this is like side random tangent. I used to be a lifeguard.
Mm.
And when I was on the stand, I would fall asleep all the time, and I would just like pressure point my right here. I'd be like, you got to stay awake. And I'm like, I'm not trying to like, like stay awake, but it's like bringing energy just back to my own body.
Yeah.
And it feels like an easy way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you think about it too, like touch is such a primal, nurturing thing. Like babies need touch for a reason. It can help promote oxytocin release. And there's like, I love to ground these things back down with there is a very specific like physiology that's like physiological process that's happening when we work with these tools. Um, but also it can just feel good, and that can be enough. Like it can feel good to tap your heart, and it can bring you to your body, and like that gets to be enough.
Is there, you mentioned the 4 different stressors.
Mhm.
Is there a certain tapping technique or place on your body that would be good for each of those?
I would say it's less about the tapping point and more about the pressure or the intensity.
Okay.
So I can run through each of these really easily. The
Yeah.
fight response, the first thing you're going to want to do is discharge energy. So you're going to want to release energy, which, depending on how far into the fight response you are, if there's like actual anger that's coming through, then I always recommend actually working with pounding and probably more off body pounding. So, like, even onto your bed. It doesn't even have to be like a rage thing, but there's something about the experience of feeling resistance against your own body in that way that it can help dispel the energy from your body and the tension. So in the same way that we want to work with activation and then restorative, anytime you're working with like more intensity with these somatic tools, then you want to just kind of like ground it back in after. So that would be my suggestion for fight
Ooh,
response.
I love that. By the way, if you guys didn't see that, we're sitting in a chair and she's just pounding on the
Like the armrest.
the armrests. Yeah. That would have been helpful a couple weeks ago, Claire. So thanks for that.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So what are some other ones?
Yeah, so flight response, I love to work with tapping for the flight response. Again, just helping like discharge energy, but usually there's less intensity with the flight response. So you can work with patting, like with the palms of your hands, kind of patting your thighs to help ground. You can also work with just like pressure with your palm of your hand against your own body, maybe your arms. Again, just anything that's really grounding would be helpful for the flight response.
So if you can't see her, she's kind of squeezing her arms and maybe feeling your shoulders, being like, damn, those are nice. Yeah. So a little bit of a hug, maybe too.
Exactly.
Giving yourself a hug. Okay.
Yep. And then this is where we start to get into what I mentioned earlier around precision with recognizing what stress response you're actually in and how to work with it. Because working with a fight response is a lot different than working with a freeze response, and vice versa. But in the fight response example, I mentioned discharging energy, like releasing energy from your body. With a freeze response, you actually want to introduce energy into your body. So again, tapping would be a great tool for this. And specifically starting softer and then building up to maybe tapping your heart a bit faster, or maybe like bringing some tapping to your arms, maybe even shaking out your whole body, just getting energy in motion and breaking up any tension or tightness that might be in your body. So
Love
is
it.
that good for the listeners?
What about fawn? Oh, she was tapping her body. I was like, let me explain everything that you do. Yeah, mostly the tapping, just like the tapping around your body, but starting very soft and then gradually making a little bit more pressure. So then we've got one more.
Then we've got the fawn response.
That's you, Claire.
The fawn response is deeper work.
Okay.
So the fawn response, first of all, can be harder to catch in the moment because sometimes it can be a higher energy thing. Sometimes it can be a lower energy thing. Sometimes it can be anxious. Sometimes it can be avoidant. It's just sneakier in the ways and more subtle in the ways that it shows up. And this is really where we start to get into quote unquote journey work, or we call this deep therapeutic work.
Mm-hmm.
So these longer breathwork journeys where you're breathing, and it doesn't have to be in and out of your mouth for that full 40 minutes. You can breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. But the fawn response usually has unconscious beliefs and childhood experiences that shaped you into being this sort of chameleon for other people. A lot of women resonate with like the good girl archetype or needing to kind of like fit into a box. And that's how we learned how to win love and validation and safety in the world. So ding ding, that's me.
Congrats. You won a prize.
And I distinctly remember when I was just in the early stages of starting my business and getting into coaching and posting to social media. There's like all this stuff that comes up around really like my truth. And if I was really saying what I really meant, I would say it one thing in this specific example of like a social media post. But then I'd start thinking about my aunt reading the post or my grandma reading the post or this random girl from high school reading the post or, my ex-boyfriend reading the post. And it's like, why are all of these people having a say, but I'm the one giving them a say? They're not even thinking. There's like so much there. So when we work with the fawn response and deeper work, there is a lot of subconscious work that we get to do that I guide my clients through around rewiring these beliefs. And there's also this journey that we get to go on of taking up healthy space in the world and actually working with a healthy fight response. Because, like me saying what I really want to say in a social media post should not feel threatening. It should not make me afraid of being misperceived or misunderstood or like I'm being a mean person by just saying what I believe.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to the fawn response, but usually when the fawn response shows up, it's paired with most often flight or freeze.
Okay.
So you can kind of work with that like initial layer of flight and freeze, and then the deeper space is where we get into the fawn response.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because all of this sounds like it would be so beneficial in the moment. But of course, like when things come up, you kind of forget about everything else, right?
Yeah.
But the whole point of this is to create the reps at home, this daily practice that you keep mentioning, so that when that comes up, those tools are still there. You know that they're accessible for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have the reps beforehand, like you can't expect it to just be there for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're doing is we're repatterning our default response to be the right response for your body. And what we're also doing is a metaphor I love to use because I find it really supportive is you can think of your daily practice like clearing the dishes off the counter into the dishwasher. And so you've got like a generally clean kitchen, right? The surface is clean, but you still have to run the dish cycle. Like you still have to run the deeper clean. And so just because we're doing a daily 10-minute practice or something like that does not negate the importance of deeper therapeutic work and allowing for our mind to go into what's called a non-ordinary state of consciousness, which is where you can work with subconscious beliefs, childhood memories, maybe even implicit memory that you don't consciously remember, but your body still has a response to certain triggers. So, yeah.
So much we can go in through there, right? But what do you deal with or how do you deal with like skeptics? Like, you even mentioned in the beginning that you weren't even into breath work because you didn't find the right person. So for someone that feels like kind of, just a little woo-woo or fluffy or overwhelmed with any of this, like, what would you say?
I would say you've got to find your vibe, right?
Yeah.
Like, I actually think it's a really beautiful thing that there's so many different techniques and facilitators. And I actually, in some breathwork journeys, I'll play house music. Like,
Yeah.
I like to kind of bring in more levity and playfulness, and um, I can also go like really deep too. But yeah, you've just got to find what resonates. But it gets to be an exciting and an opportunity that there's so many different facilitators now with this work, and you just get to kind of try things on and figure out what feels good for you.
And what if those skeptics are just like, why would I try anything if I think it's silly or if I think that it's woo-woo,
Then
fluffy?
that's everyone's
Yeah.
choice, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with working out. It's
Yeah.
like if someone is absolutely certain that they don't need protein, and it would probably be beneficial for them to eat more protein, then it's kind of like you can't change someone's mind,
Right.
right? Or if someone is absolutely certain that they don't need to lift weights and resistance training is not an important part of fitness, it's
Yeah.
like, that's
Okay.
cool, great. Like,
Yeah.
do you? It doesn't change me or
Right.
my experience in the world, but um, here for you if you
Yeah.
want some
Decide to change your
support.
mind.
Yeah.
Same. I'm like, please lift heavy shit.
Yeah.
How do you think people can get a little bit more curious about this, or where do you see people maybe changing their mind from like, I'm so against it to, oh, maybe.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's usually a rock bottom
Okay.
experience where things get so hard and so challenging that you're forced into it.
Yeah.
Same thing with fitness, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's like things are fine. And then you go on that cruise with your family and see the pictures after. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh God, like this is so painful. I can't believe I let myself go this far
Yeah.
in this direction. Um, and it can oftentimes be a really confusing experience because in with fitness, a lot of people grow up and they're really active in sports, and their body isn't so much like uh it's not so far in one direction, and then when that gets really out of control, it feels like this conflict of identity now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a much deeper rooted thing. So it's the same thing with our emotions or our mental health or like anxious thoughts. It's like if you generally had a really positive, happy outlook most of your life, and then all of a sudden there's like a really big thing that happens that throws you completely off what you're used to feeling,
Yeah.
then usually that's the inspiration.
Mm.
But I love to encourage people to get into this work before that happens so they can be resourced. There's always going to be things that happen. Like
Oh,
life's going to happen.
yeah.
And I know for a fact, like my biggest goal in life is to teach my children these tools so
Yeah.
that they can be resourced growing up and not have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, especially when you hit that rock bottom
Mhm.
is when you feel like you need the most help. But I was talking with my coaches earlier this week, and it's like, you think you need help at your lowest point, but sometimes the most necessary and fruitful help you can get is when you're at your highest point,
Yeah.
because that's where you feel the most complacent. Oh, everything's going well. And then when something does happen, because eventually something will happen very unexpectedly, even you don't have those resources because you've been on this high for so long. And so I'm just letting anyone that's listening, you don't have to wait till you get there too.
Mhm.
This is just such a great resource that you can always have. Like, it's your own body that you can always come back to with breath work and with tapping and with everything that Claire has been speaking about today. If you have the tools now, it will be so helpful later. So
Mhm.
keep that in mind too as you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I actually don't feel that much stress. Like, but one time you might.
Well, that's the best part about literally all of this
Yeah.
is we've gone through this huge wave of normalizing therapy,
Yeah.
right? And just like letting that be a normal thing that people go to therapy, but you're kind of outsourcing that support. It can be really supportive for periods of time,
Yeah.
but it's not really like a long-term sustainable approach
Of course.
versus learning these tools, learning how to work with your own body. You've got that the rest of your life,
Yeah.
and then you get to pattern those in so they become more automatic versus something that you have to really like think about how to use.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so right about the therapy. Like, of
Mm,
course, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so thankful that we can openly talk about it and have it be involved in our life.
mhm.
But we still have ourselves. And for that hour-long therapy session once a week or once every other week, what about the other 6, 7 days of the week, you know?
Yeah.
So where can people find you? Where can they hear more about what you teach and how can they work with you?
You can find me on Instagram at claire.ollila, Claire.Ollila. Usually my last name trips people up with the spelling. And the first place that I would recommend people look is my co-facilitator and we share a brand together and run immersions. And we've got an 8-week like deep therapeutic mentorship all around the fawn response, if that's anyone's like thing. But we just launched this new course called Open Foundations, and it's 5 modules. Each module probably takes like an hour to go through. It's really digestible, but it's all about precision and how to recognize those specific signals when they come up, what kinds of tools to use to work with them. There's a practice that goes along with each module to embody the lesson. So it's not just like something in your head, it's something you can actually practice and embody. Um, and yeah, that'd be my first recommendation for people to go.
Amazing. We'll put all that in the show notes if you don't know how to spell her name because no one knows how to spell mine. But thank you so much for being here. It was beautiful. I also feel so calm now just
Mm.
with your presence. So thank you for being here and sharing all your knowledge. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on. It
Yeah.
was great.